Welcome to Scaling with Agility. I'm Yuval. Today I want to talk about what happened to Agile and where do we go from here. Agile started as a movement focused on principles, adaptability, innovating ways of working. But as it transitioned to the mainstream, it's become, as things do when they become mainstream, more commoditized, more practice focused. Organizations that are adopting agile techniques today see it as mostly a set of rigid processes, certifications, frameworks, more than a mindset or a set of values. If you look at the dynamics of mass market adoption, you can see that that's a pattern that's common. The mainstream expects a full kit solution. They want those certifications. They want the frameworks. They want simple solutions that they can just deploy. They want to adopt. They don't really want to adapt. They don't have the patience. They don't have the skills in the organization to actually adopt solutions. And there's a mismatch between what Agile is, which is about inspection, adaptation, and finding better ways of working, and the notion of we just adopt something. I recall in Israel, when working with a client more than 10 years ago, there was this confusion between adaptation and adoption. People said adoption when they meant adaptation. And it's not just about the language, it's about the preference of different types of organizations. What we are seeing is that the results of that adoption, mass scale adoption, is pure agility. It's agile theater, a lot of people that hold the role, that have been certified, a lot of practices that you can see, but you're not seeing improved agility. And that created disillusionment, which is natural as well. What that disillusionment has created is people are actively trying to distance themselves from the agile world. Adding fuel to the fire is the fact that there are people that are actually incentivized to cause you to distance yourself from the agile world. If I'm trying to sell a new operating model for product organizations, I have an incentive to show how that is different than the current agile operating model that you're using. In the past, when I was helping organizations use Kanban, this was very frightening to the establishment around Scrum, and Scrum people had a lot of incentive to spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt about Kanban and to push it away. That changed over the years, and I'm hopeful that over the years there would be a better synergy between what we now call the product operating model world and the agile world. But at the moment, it does feel a lot of the time like it's the Judean liberation front versus the liberation front of Judea, the internal religious that nobody understands from the outside and nobody really cares. But the main thing that is happening is it's spreading confusion around what should we actually do. So that is the state of the industry coming at a time where, in general, any enablement role that is focused on improving how you work, how you're structured, is under heavy scrutiny when you're trying to improve the bottom line right now, when you're trying to focus on operational efficiency, where you cannot just throw people at the problem with zero interest and you can just scale. The irony is that what we as Agilists, our purpose should be to help organizations operate more effectively, get better outcomes on their investments, which should come especially handy at a time where everything is under scrutiny and you're trying to not just grow, but grow profitably. What I've seen resonate better in my conversations with organizations and leaders is focusing on how do the principles and practices that we talk about, how do they relate to creating a better developer experience, customer experience, business bottom lines. So in having conversations as agilists, we should talk less about the practices and even less about the principles. I really believe that aligned autonomy is powerful. I believe that empowered product teams are the way to go. I believe that speed through empiricism that is evidence informed. I believe in servant leadership. I've seen it work. I've seen it create great organizations, but it's probably not the right way to have conversations these days. It's probably better to have questions around the problems that the organization is facing. So empowered product teams, okay, great. What problem does it solve? Why do we think that that's useful? Are we seeing that our throughput and our ability to actually deliver products is slowing down as we scale because people are slow? Are we feeling like we hired great people and they're not really thriving? They're not able to deliver value? Have we got to an inflection point where we, the leaders of the organization, are the bottleneck? Those are some problems that are better conversation starters. We might get to empowered product teams and aligned autonomy, but that's not the way we should start the conversation. So this is actually how I start conversations with organizations these days. I ask them questions around the outcomes that they're looking for, what are the business problems that they're facing, what you might call expensive problems. And we get from there to what principles, and only then what practices could really be useful for them. If you're the practicing agilist, you might want to identify what's the value architecture of your work. How do the things that you're focused on, whether it's OKRs, daily scrums, story pointing, velocity, throughput, cycle time, what's the chain between the thing that you're focused on, which is an activity or even an output, a deliverable? How does that contribute? How does that help the organization with its expensive problems? And validate that thinking. Work with your stakeholders, whether it's the team, whether it's the stakeholders at the organizational level, to make sure that you're working towards the right expensive problems. And if you're not, I suggest you quickly find a way to work on things that are at the top priority for the organization. This isn't a time for investment in fluffy processes or even rigid, concrete processes that don't really tie into the top agenda for the organization. And if you're not even aware of what's the agenda for the organization, maybe that's a better place to start.